Welcome to NavTalk Series 3, brought to you by the NavWealth Financial Group. Have you ever wondered what it's like to run a successful business? Business in the Spotlight will bring you interviews with successful business owners to educate, inform and inspire. Today I've got two special guests in the room, and my special guests operate in quite a unique part of the world and a unique business. And I think their story is going to be quite fascinating. It'll be one that resonate with a lot of you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Dave and Brendon.
Simon, how you going?
I'm good. Now, Dave and Brendon, you've got a business called East Coast Marine. Tell us a little bit about the business.
So we collect coral and fish on the Great Barrier Reef on the southern end. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do.
When you say you collect coral and fish, they're two different things, I assume. So when you fish, do you actually go fishing?
We can.
Right.
We can go fishing, but it's for the aquarium trade.
Okay.
The global aquarium trade.
Okay. So we'll get a bit into that. So I'm assuming what you're saying is you're actually catching a live fish, not with a fishing line and planning to eat it.
Yeah, no, live aquarium fish. So.
Wow. Yeah. And the coral is the same, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Same.
Okay. Before we get into your business, which is a really interesting business in itself, tell me a little bit about your journey to get to the business. And Brendon, I might start with you. How did you start your business career? What happened after school?
I went to my dream job at the council for quite a few years. And anyway, fishing's always been part of our family, and we always had boats and grew up fishing and crabbing and all that. So while I was working at the council, I bought a boat and started doing some commercial fishing for, human consumption. I looked at taking over another coral business many years ago, and the pricing of it was just astronomical. So I just kept doing what I was doing. Dave went and started working for another coral collector on the East Coast. And when I was sick of my time at the council, when Dave married my sister, we decided to join up and start the business. So Dave obviously had the experience with the coral diving and all the coral side of it. I had a boat and all the commercial tickets, so it just fell into place.
So Brendon, you mentioned you had a boat and commercial tickets. You actually were a professional fisherman?
Yes, professional fisherman, yeah.
And what does that mean?
You hold a professional licence to go and catch fish or crabs or whatever licence you are holding at the time to be able to go and catch them and sell them commercially.
So when you say sell them commercially, you can sell them on the street, sell them to co-ops, that sort of stuff?
Wholesale. Just all wholesale.
And is that a regulated space, or is it more that you just register yourself and off you go?
No, there's a lot to it.
Yeah,
so you've got to have, to be able to operate the boat, first you've got to have like all your commercial driving tickets, then you've got to be a commercial fisherman, which is another licence. Then you've got to have a fishing licence, so a commercial fishing boat licence, like a primary licence that goes on the boat, and then you have symbols attached to that which determine what species you're allowed to collect and catch.
Oh, okay, so it's that specific.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've left, are you still doing the council work?
No, left there years ago.
Okay, so you've gone, all right, fish with council, I'm going to go become a commercial fisherman.
Yep.
And then obviously that's morphed and changed as Dave got involved.
Basically started the commercial setup straight away for the coral, didn't we?
Yeah. Okay. So Dave, in terms of your journey, take me through the same thing. You finished school, and what do you get up to?
I was with the government for a little bit, doing sort of not really what I wanted to do, but it was outdoors, it was in the environment, it was turtle research work. And then left that, floated around for a little bit, and then found the commercial fishing side of things. I've always been fishing, always diving, grew up doing all that sort of thing, and then had a mate that was working for a coral diver, and then he said, look, we're looking for someone, and then jumped on board with them, did 4 years I think with them, and then it all just sort of aligned, and we started East Coast Marine Collection.
Okay. In terms of your work with the council, with the government or council, I assume it's a council with the turtles.
Yep.
But prior to doing that, have you got a background around animals and marine, or what sort of fascinated you into the area, you think?
Not really, just fishing, really, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's all it was. Dad was fishing always fishing. He used to take me down on his bike down to the river and go fishing when I was 2 years old, and always been fishing. Yeah, Dad had boats, and
Okay.
yeah,
So it was in your blood, and it sounds a bit like Brendon, it was in your blood as well,
Absolutely.
the boats and the fishing side of things. Okay. And then suddenly through a relationship with your sister, Brendon...
Well, we're always mates. Dave and I were always mates beforehand.
Oh,
so,
were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've known Dave for a long time.
Through school?
Underwater hockey, funnily enough.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
was where we met, wasn't it? Or the spearing club.
spearfishing club.
Spearfishing club
but-
in Bundy.
Yeah,
Slow down. What was the first one you just said then?
This-
Underwater hockey.
Which, and the spearfishing club at the same
I get
time.
the spearfishing club.
Yeah.
So that's a club where, you talk
Yeah.
about and you go spearfish. What's underwater hockey?
That's what it is. You play hockey underwater.
You what?
Underwater hockey.
What's it?
So it's
You've
got a
got
weighted puck.
A what?
A weighted puck, like a hockey puck.
Yeah.
And you jump in on the bottom of the pool and you hold your breath and you flick the puck around.
yeah.
And it floats along the
No,
bottom of the pool.
it's on the bottom. It's hard. It's heavy.
Yeah.
So you got to take a breath, dive down, swim along with a set of fins on.
It's a great sport. You should Google it.
Really?
Yeah, you can get this
Excellent
videos
sport.
on it.
And tell me
They
how
would
many,
play it down here, I would imagine.
how many people have to be revived after
none, but
underwater
there was-
hockey?
I split a few people.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Very rough. Very rough.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So is there no rules to this game?
Oh yeah, there's rules. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's just rough, and the puck's quite heavy, so flicked it, you can cop it in your face, and it splits you.
So would it be water polo but underwater? Is that a fair way to describe
Oh,
it?
sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
On the bottom, you got to hold your breath
Yeah. And how are you moving the puck along?
with a little bat.
With a bat.
Little
Yep.
hockey stick. Yep.
You'll have to Google it. It'll make heaps more
too
sense.
funny.
Then.
Too funny. So you've known each other, and through a series of events, Dave, you married Brendon's sister,
Yep.
but more so your business journey's already started. That's just a sideline. Is that fair?
Can't really remember the time frame. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. We're always good, mate. Like we're always
Yeah,
great mates.
always
I'm not
mates,
sure
yeah.
when it's all happened around the same time. How long you been with her?
So, Dave, you're actually you've done the work with the government, and you start working for a coral collection company.
Yeah. Yep.
And they needed some work. What's your role with them?
I started as a decky, so just processing coral on the deck and cleaning and that sort of thing. And then it was only a couple of months in, they were like, the guy who was my mate that got me on there, he's like, hey, I'm going to leave, I've got to get out of here, going to a different country. And then, yeah, basically just threw me into being a diver.
Okay.
So then started diving pretty well, yeah, not far in.
Okay. And you mentioned you're working for that company for about 4 years.
Yeah.
So even at the start of our journey, Dave and I went and had meetings with Dave's old boss to try and look at, because he's an old man, he's 77 something years old. So we looked at trying to buy him out at the start, and again, just wanted an astronomical amount of money for it. So we started doing our own thing. So let's do this ourselves. Good old dad, fronted some money for the license.
Yep.
And away we went.
Let's break that down a bit. So you decide you want to become coral collectors on your own, and there's a bit of a process involved. And how does that work? So what do we do?
Well, the first thing was getting a coral license. Without that, you can't basically do anything. A coral collection license. That's where we started, wasn't it?
Yep.
And so what you're saying is a really regulated space, right?
Yes.
Super regulated.
Very heavily regulated.
And that's about marine protection, the whole coral industry,
Yeah.
and the coral reefs dying and so forth, I assume.
The spotlight's always on it, yeah, but you do only hear the bad news, not the good as well. But yes, it's regulated, and we're happy that it is, of course. It makes everything more sustainable and helps with the future, gives us a future.
Yeah. So you knock on the government's door, or do you have to wait till a coral license comes up? They're not just
there's
produced.
only X amount produced, I'm not sure. There's only X amount
60?
available. 60 or 63 or something,
Something
which
like that.
some,
Around
a lot
Australia?
of companies own multiple. Yeah, it's East Coast Queensland.
Right.
So we just fish in the East Coast of Queensland fishery.
Yep.
There will be no more of those licenses ever handed out or given out or made or anything. So what's there is it. So we had to wait till somebody else retired and sort of was selling up, and we bought their license.
Okay. So you found their license and you negotiate to buy it, and you've bought it. So now you've got the license to collect the coral. Well, what happens next?
We started building raceways.
Yeah. So
Okay.
tanks to hold
For
it
the
in.
audience, what's a raceway?
It's just a fiberglass tank, 6 metres by 1.2 long, by about 30 centimetres deep. And that's where you keep all your coral and fish.
Okay. So when you say you keep all your coral and fish, this coral's actually alive. It's a living
Very alive.
animal.
Yes. Yep. It eats, it grows, it does everything a living thing does.
Okay.
And all the while we're building raceways, then it's everything else with finding a shed. Obviously, this stuff's export. We'd already started working on an export permit. There's a whole heap of stuff that's got to be done before you can actually just sell a piece of coral.
Yeah, right. So you've got the license, but there's a lot more to it in terms of actually turning into a business.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was
right.
about, I think we started in February that year,
yeah.
and that was to kick off July 1st
To collect and
to
that.
collect.
And I-
To
Our
start
first
collecting.
bit of coral.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So,
So we're setting up the infrastructure to keep the coral alive and happy when you get it back.
Yeah.
And I'm probably assuming a few things here. We get it back. How do we then actually catch? What's the process of catching it and
So we've
getting it back?
We can dive anywhere. The collection zones. There's a line north of Baffle Creek, and you can collect anywhere north up to a certain point again. So we've got it. At this point, early on, we had a trailerable boat, 7.2 metre boat, and you basically go to where you think there might be coral. You start the hook, you get it up, put a rag in your mouth, and jump in, and
Right.
start searching.
So if you're within the lines, you can search wherever you want.
No, that's not that simple either. I can't go in green zones or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
zones, yeah.
Yeah, so
all the
it's
same.
regulated where you can dive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, same as where you're allowed to fish. So
Okay.
you've got to know all the rules and regulations as to where you're allowed to actually collect
Okay.
commercially.
Talk to us about you get to a spot and you think this is a good spot to try and get some coral or a live fish. You jump in the water and you just sort of doing an exploration, I assume, and check it out and say, is this worth, spending a bit of time here? Is that fair?
Yeah, well, you work that out pretty quick, don't you?
Yeah, you pick your spots, obviously. Like, you get pretty good at picking spots for what the market's chasing at the time, because certain species only live in certain spots, so you try and target what you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
have a lot of one species that's, perhaps caught down the southern end of where we dive, then you might need to go up further towards Mackay or something to get other species
Yeah.
to sell.
So you've done it for 4 years anyway with the other business. I'm assuming you get a bit of an idea of where they're finding stuff and your
Well,
species.
you're chasing unique coral. That's where, the high-end coral is unique. Yeah, obviously it grows quick enough. We've been back to places a year later, and it's just like no one was there. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, and we've just dived stuff, probably would be 4 years ago since we dived it. 4 years, and you wouldn't even know that we dived it. And plus, a lot of these spots, other collectors have dived as well. There's no real secrets out there.
No,
You go to an island, you jump in, you get a bit of an idea what looks good and what doesn't look good. So,
Yeah, well, given that, and I'm assuming you're using maps and a bit of guidance, so I dare say part of your goodwill of your business is those coloured maps where you've identified where all those special species of coral lie.
every
Look,
mark's it. What's
heaps of marks.
Yeah, okay. You mentioned, Dave, that depending on what people are looking for and demand. Now, that's an interesting one, because how do you identify? Are you saying order off us and we'll go and get it? How do people telling you what sort of species, etc., that they're trying to find?
So currently we've got probably 10 active clients, I would say. So, and we have a pretty good relationship with all of them, and you have to, because you have to know what they want, so they're wholesalers most of the time.
Yep.
And they know what they want. They've obviously talked to their people, to their shops and that, and they know at any point in time what they need. So we have a good chat with them, and they let us know.
Okay, so the wholesalers are putting it into the retailers, selling it to the consumers. They're obviously hearing what the consumers are asking
That's
for.
right.
And by the way, this coral that you're collecting, it's live when the retailers get it.
Yep.
What are people doing with it?
Put it in the fish tanks.
Okay.
Yep.
So they're beautiful fish tanks. They spend a lot of them. I've seen some amazing fish tanks.
Yeah.
And with the live corals, that's you guys. That's what you're doing. You're supplying all that stuff for the
And
fish
we are
tank.
99.9% export. We do very little domestic.
Okay.
So if you've got a fish tank in the States or, where else?
Europe.
Europe.
Anywhere in Europe.
There's a good chance you've got some of our coral in it.
Okay, so you guys specialise in international and foreign. I assume there's others that specialise for Australia and do their bit?
Yeah, for sure.
Or is the market just not good in Australia?
Well, it's not as good. And you seem to get the better money And they take bigger orders overseas. You know, you got little shops there would be shops here that sell stuff, and you can go and see some coral, but I don't think it'd be what we send overseas.
Okay, so you're sending over in bulk.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And the coral's got to leave your warehouse in Bundaberg, which is very warm and a bit remote, and it's got to find its way into America. How does it get there?
So we pack at night time most of the time. We start at 6. It's packed. Yeah, it all travels. Everyone asks how did we get it there? But it's all in bagged, like plastic bags with water. Travels wet everywhere. It'll leave Bundaberg by about midnight. It's in Brisbane by 6 the next day. Then it's on a plane by lunchtime that day, heading to wherever it's going.
And most of the time it arrives as it was intended?
Within about 70 hours normally, 72 hours.
Wow.
And we have very little dead loss.
Wow. And you put the coral in a bag, so I'm assuming the coral doesn't need air like we do to breathe because it's underwater anyway. How's it work?
So it's a plastic bag, water, coral, oxygen, and then it's a fairly solid bag, and then it's clipped off and sealed up.
So it is an airtight seal.
Yeah.
So
Only for
oxygen
travel,
is required
really.
in the process.
It doesn't for travelling.
So what's a coral eat and breathe?
What's what?
What's a coral? Because it's a live animal.
Yeah, yep.
Or what, is that fair? Live animal?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
What's a coral eat and breathe? Is it taking oxygen out of the water?
No, it doesn't use oxygen.
Okay.
It eats whatever it can get its tentacles onto, really. It can.
Are we talking plants? Are we talking animals? Are we talking people?
Mostly live matter, but yeah,
Right.
it will eat. Yeah, they're opportunistic. They'll eat anything. Yeah, anything in the water column, plankton,
Right.
anything. Yeah.
And obviously it's got to float by and be grabbed rather
Yeah,
than
yeah.
anything else because the poor things are stuck.
And they photosynthesize.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So they've got a very diverse diet, and I assume being in the ocean, it's pretty well anything the ocean supplies that is it meat matter?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
If the dead fish falls on it, it'll eat it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep.
So how do you feed your coral back at the warehouse when you bring it back?
It's fed twice a week,
Right.
depending on what's happening at work. But yeah, it gets fed twice a week. A mix of blended up pilchards and a product called reefroids, which is basically that dried out matter, microorganisms and that sort of stuff, all blended up. And each piece of coral in the facility is individually fed
Wow.
through a pipette twice a week.
So there's a lot of love. A lot of
Lots
love for these pieces of
yeah.
coral.
Lots of love.
Okay. And we'll get to it, but I assume it's quite valuable anyway. And
A
if
little
you've got a
bit,
quota and you let it die, it's probably not in your interest,
Yeah,
right?
not at all.
Okay. Let's go to the collections part. And I reckon this is the most fascinating part of what you guys get up to in your business. And we'll get to the goods and bads of it in a bit. But you've gone out there, you've thrown the reg on, you've jumped in the water, you've identified as a spot that you want to do a bit of collecting. What happens from there?
Basically go down and take your basket down and your hammer and your chisel, and it's each piece, everything's collected by hand. And yeah, you set off and Dave will go one way, I'll go the other way, and the deckhand will stay up on top of in the boat and tend to the hook and make sure it's all working fine and tend to the hoses, and off we go. Dave will do one side and I'll do the other side, and yeah, start the hunt.
Okay.
Start searching.
Okay, it reminds me what you brought up before about this underwater hockey. So you put the tank on the bank, you jump down and you get under there and you're at 20 metres, and before too long you've run out of air and up you come again. And
Yeah, well, we've got hooky in it, so it's called a hooky in it. It's a compressor driven by a Honda motor, and then that just feeds us air constantly. So as long as it's got fuel or there's no breakages,
Which has happened.
plenty of times,
I'm going to ask a question or two about that one, don't
then
you
you're
worry.
fine. You're basically unlimited until the fuel runs out or
Okay.
your time runs out.
So we're unlimited, but I've had the fortune of doing a bit of diving in my life, and it's great fun. But what's this got to do with your safety stops and your decompression?
Yeah, we dive off computers, obviously. So
Right.
we've got a very good dive computer each, and you basically just monitor
Yeah.
your dive. Always try and start down deep and never work into deco ever.
Yeah.
And, do your safety stop, and it's all Very safe. And
There's a bit of giggling going on here, people. I think there's been a few mishaps along the way.
plenty of mishaps,
Okay.
as there is with
Trial and error.
every
Okay.
job.
So what sort of depths are you generally collecting most of your stuff at?
And they what, between 10 and 27 metres?
Yeah.
Or even 4, anywhere up to 4 metres. 4 and 27?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not incredibly deep. And where would be your sort of mean, your average, you reckon? What sort of depth?
About 12 probably.
12 metres.
12.
Yeah.
It's a safe bet.
Because I may be wrong, but coral, because of the way it is, I think it relies a little bit on that sunlight anyway. So you're not going to get it at 100 metres. Is that right?
You probably could. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You could.
We've dived close to 40 metres and you still collect stuff down there.
Okay.
Non-photosynthetic coral, there's plenty of that around too.
Okay.
So
Okay. So you darken.
doesn't need sunlight.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. So we're underwater. Brendon, you've gone left. Dave's gone. Your deckhand's keeping an eye on you. Is your deckhand effectively, because we're always told to dive with a buddy, is your deckhand effectively your buddy? Supposed to be?
He's probably the main man that's keeping us from being alive if anything goes wrong, I guess. Like, we've always got bailout bottles on our back to help us out if anything goes wrong, because if you bust a hose, you've got no air immediately. Like, it's just gone.
Yep.
So we've got bailout bottles in that situation.
So a bailout bottle is your classic tank.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Just a
Bit small, yeah.
bit smaller.
Okay. Because all you really want to do is do your decompression.
Just so you
come
can
up.
come up from whatever depth, yeah. So
Yeah.
you need to be able to do a stop if so you've got to still have a decent amount of air in it, but yeah.
10
we
minutes,
do not
15
dive
minutes.
without them.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah,
just, it
okay.
would be madness too.
Okay. So he's keeping an eye on you. You've got your spare air if anything goes wrong, and inevitably when we're working and in life it does go wrong. Talk to us about the things that might go wrong. Oh, actually, let me ask one more question before we get there, because that's going to be a bit of fun. How long would you spend underwater on a dive and a typical collection?
Depending on the depth, it is all depth related, as you know. It's
Yeah.
say if you do under 10 metres, you can dive all day.
Okay.
You don't have to come up. You don't have to do a stop. So we've probably done 4-hour dives,
Yeah, we've done.
4.5 hour dives. You know,
Right.
if you just keep going. But when you're diving and you're starting down in say 27 metres or 30 metres, your dives you'll work your way up. Obviously, in the water column, you'll work your way up the bank, and it'll be maybe an hour dive.
Okay. So you're spending a fair while underwater.
Yeah, most days are, depending on whether it's winter or summer, but 6-7 hours a day sometimes.
Oh, okay. So it is a solid day's work, but underwater.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're diving deep, you'll do less. You might only do 3 hour or hour and a bit dives, but still the depth's a huge thing too. So
Well, it takes it out of
still
you,
a
right?
massive day.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So you're pretty exhausted by a good day of
Oh, yeah.
diving.
Absolutely.
And when you go out on these expeditions, if you like, how long will you spend out at sea? What?
Like 4 days.
Okay.
Anywhere up to 4 days, 4 or
Wow.
5 days.
Okay. And you're collecting it, you're storing it all in the boat. You've got a facility there to keep everything alive and do all that, and you're effectively just building up until you're full, and then you go back in. Is that fair?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, or not even necessarily full, just whenever the weather's going to change, or
Okay.
if we've got enough, if we've got what we need, that sort of thing.
Tides play a big factor too, obviously.
Yeah. Okay.
Big tides at that end of the world, so you can't really dive on the top tides.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the question I was asking before. We're doing 4 hours underwater. We've got a tube in our mouth, a bit like the classic old movies, I assume, with the guy with the big thing on his head.
Very similar.
You guys don't have the big things, but I dare say it's the same approach for everyone out there. And you've got weights on and stuff, so I'm assuming that's keeping you neutrally buoyant or actually hitting the ground. What are the things that happens if something goes wrong? Give us a couple of stories of things that have happened along the way.
Very early on, when we started, we obviously didn't have the giant budget that we probably needed anyway. We had a hooker unit built by a guy who's very good at building, I'll say compressors, but maybe not hooker units. So we got down, we travelled about 7 hours to where we needed to be at the boat ramp, then travelled 50 miles out, which mostly that's about 100 kilometres in the boat, got to our spot, went down on our first dive, got to about 17 metres and lost all air immediately. And yeah, it wasn't much fun, but we survived it, and that's the main thing.
That's your backup reg, right?
Yeah,
Straight onto the bailout bottle.
yeah, straight onto the bailout bottle.
Right. And other times, I can think this guy on the up on the deck, you're under there for 4 hours, he's starting to doze off. He's not even paying
And sometimes there's
attention.
not a lot they can do out of the boat, because we've had the anchor drag. If you get caught out in current, you get in, it's all nice and calm and no current, then you can get caught out. It can change and do things that you don't expect it to do. So the anchor's dragged on us a few times.
So say, what does that mean? What's
It's if the
the boat's disappeared?
Well, you're still attached to it. We're attached to the boat.
Woo, because of the air.
Yeah, so we've got a 100-metre hose each that we're attached to the boat.
Yeah.
So you start getting dragged along. So
So the boat starts pulling you
Yep.
along.
Yep.
it's time
Okay.
to go up. Yeah.
And the hose is the only thing connecting you to the boat,
Yep.
which is also feeding you the air.
Yep.
Oh my God. Okay. Now, for me, this is a bit of the elephant in the room, and I think a few people out there will empathise with this. There's a lot of interesting creatures underwater, and you're collecting coral, which is probably the more mundane of the creatures, and nice-looking fish. So we're getting stuff for aquariums, right? What about all the other stuff that...
Just don't think about it, Dave?
No, especially the water we dive in can be very dirty.
Yeah.
So if you can't see them, they're not there.
Okay. Okay. I haven't heard that one before. I've always been the believer if you can't see them, that's when you get nervous
You
because...
just don't think about it.
because
if you don't
they-
think about it, they don't exist. They're not there.
Okay.
They're not thinking about you.
Okay. You're both giggling, so there's a story or two here. Tell me about one or two encounters that you might have had along the way, because I dare say you're creating noise underwater, you're creating vibration, you've got animals and plants hanging off, well, plants, it's an animal, hanging off the side in a bag. You're going to attract attention.
Yeah, to be honest, the sharks do tend to stay away. You see the odd one, but we're not because we're not putting any blood or anything like that into the water. It probably tends to keep them away a bit, doesn't it? But the best story we've probably got, we had our great deckhand there a little while ago, decided he wanted to eat a nice coral trout for lunch. So he got his coral trout and he filleted it, and he threw the frame into the water while we were still diving. And a nice tiger shark had us pinned to the bottom for a while.
So how does a tiger shark pin you to the bottom?
Well, you start to go up and he comes over.
Right,
So you're safest on the bottom, albeit you've only got a hammer and chisel to keep him away.
right.
But yeah, we just had to wait a little while until he got a little bit less interested and we went up into the boat.
So he's an animal, and he's obviously looking for a bit of food. So you start to float your way up, and he sees you, and he comes over for a bit of a look.
Yep,
So you head back down
yep.
and make yourself like a piece of coral and hold on. And then he does another circle or two, or she,
Yeah.
forgive me, and then eventually loses interest. Is that where I'm coming from?
Basically, that's how
That's sort of how it went,
Yep.
yeah. He was very interested for a little while, but when he realised there wasn't much food around, he
obviously ate the frame and that was enough.
Yeah.
And wasn't going to get a chance to eat us, so he took off and we got back to the boat.
So, gentlemen, you're being modest. What's very interested? Is that what sort of
Oh.
distance is very interested?
Within a couple of metres for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So,
But see, we're used to all that sort of stuff because we've grown up spearing fish,
yeah,
So we free dived and speared for fish for 10 years or more. So
Yeah.
we've had far closer encounters than that, but that's different. You're hitting a fish that's giving off the vibrations and then blood. So
yeah.
I had way closer calls with spearfishing.
Okay. I might ask you about one or two of those. So, tiger shark, he's come around, she, forgive me again, has come around for a bit of a look. And how big's our friend?
It was only a little one, probably 10 foot.
Oh,
yeah, 10 foot.
Little one.
That's a baby.
Okay. All right, I want to take a little bit of a dive in this because I reckon this is just fascinating. So you're back in the days of spearing and you're actually killing fish and putting blood in the water, like you said. And I know fish send vibrations when you spear them, and that attracts the shark. Tell me about one or two of these, and not a baby this time.
Oh, so there was one story not long ago. No, probably about 4 or 5 years ago at a spot. Anyway, Brendon shot a fish, and I was right next to him, just watching, and he straight away a big bull shark came in to eat the fish, and instead of the idea is when you shoot it, get it as close to you as possible because the shark once you stop it vibrating, that the shark will just lose interest and go away. Anyway, this fish it had the sight to try and find cover under me, and it's come up and hiding under me, and instead of pulling it closer to Brendon, just let it hide under me while the shark's trying to eat it. So that was one good one. We've had plenty of other ones with big tiger sharks coming in, but they're pretty...
push tigers away with your spear gun.
Yeah.
With your spear gun?
Yeah.
And what sort of size is a big tiger for you guys?
14 foot.
Yeah. So they'll swallow you whole?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Had plenty of times where you shoot a fish and your mate's got to push the shark away, or you lose your fish and then lose your gun, or...
Oh, gosh.
You know?
Okay, so sharks are pretty second nature in your world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you sound like you're reasonably relaxed. The rest of us would be walking on water, dare I say, trying to get away. All right, so we've got a really good picture of your business, East Coast Marine Collections, and you're collecting live fish and corals according to your quota system. And you've mentioned that this is a government-issued licence that you can do it, and it's really regulated. How does that work?
We've bought a lot, so we've got a primary license for each boat. We've got 2 boats now. We've got a primary license on each boat, and we've got a coral symbol. So we've got, amongst other symbols, we've got a coral and aquarium fish symbol, which we've bought, which is then the quota is attached to the coral. Yeah, we can then go and collect. Where do we go with that?
It's worth mentioning that we got 4 tons of quota.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
On an annual rollover.
Okay. So if you get your 4 tonnes in a week, there's nothing more for another year.
Yeah, which we've never even gone close
I get
to.
it.
never.
Yeah. Okay. And when you bring in the coral, the regulation is you're marking it off, I assume, on your quota system, you're weighing it.
Each day is logged. Each day is logged in a logbook. So first of all, we've got to ring in to leave.
Yep.
So we do a pre-trip notice with fisheries.
Yep.
So and our boats are VMS'd.
Yep.
So they're monitored. They know where they are all the time.
Okay.
We ring in to say that we are leaving for a commercial trip and
Yep.
where our landing place will be.
Yep.
You know where we're going from, where we're coming back to.
Yep.
And then we go out, and each day's diving collection is logged into a logbook. So piece count and weight. And then at the end of the trip, we do a pre-notice before we land.
Yep.
So a prior notice. Ring in how many individual numbers of individual corals we have on board. Ring that into fisheries. And then we land. And once it's all unloaded and weighed again properly, we do a weights notice of each individual species of coral again. And that's reported into fisheries, and that comes off their quota.
Okay, so it's literally a double checking procedure and regulated to death. And do you get random checks and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we've been checked heaps of times.
Okay.
At sea and back at the ramp and whatnot. Even at the facility, they come into the facility, and fisheries officers, that is, come for a walk around the facility whenever they like.
Okay. And I'm assuming that's to stop piracy. That's probably the best word for it, or the rogues.
Catch, I suppose, illegal activities.
And you guys see much of that?
Well, we thought we did, and we reported it actually, but yeah.
Okay.
The fella, we thought there was someone near Gladstone potentially doing it illegally. So we actually didn't hear an outcome out of that. We did mention it to fisheries, but...
Yeah, because I dare say all of you with the quotas and the licences, you're pretty particular about protecting your turf and what you're building up as an asset, right?
Yeah, we've paid huge money to be where we are.
Yeah.
If someone else is doing it, it's cost nothing, and they're undercutting the industry, it's a very bad thing for us. So.
Yeah, gotcha. And you started now looking into the other side of it. We talked the live, what's going on. We're now starting to talk the collectible or the ornamental side. Yeah. And just for everyone out there, an ornamental coral is what you might see on the mantelpiece. It's white or a colour, but all I've seen is white. Yeah. But is it fair that's coral that's died? How's that work?
Not necessarily. It could be alive. It could be dead, but it most likely was alive. But the thing is that coral is extremely fast growing, and the places it's collected, we often see it where it's competing with itself, with its own species for sunlight. Like, it's just so prevalent in the natural reef system. It's, we're not taking anything that's not going to be replaced within, could be a couple of months.
Okay. But is the quota system different to the live?
No, it's all the same.
Collections?
It's all the same quota now. That it's all just been, I guess, redone by fisheries. That's why now, for this last 2 years, each individual coral species, which there's 120 something that we can collect. We do collect, they have an individual quota on each species for the whole East Coast. And within that, so if one highly prized species of, say, Scully, it was caught within, I don't know, 2 or 3 months of the season opening, because that total allowable catch for that species was finished.
Yeah.
But no, it's all the same. The most common ornamental corals is acro, and there's a 20 ton, is it 20 ton?
I think so, yeah.
20 ton total allowable catch on that for the whole East Coast.
Okay. And that's because of its species and its...
Yeah.
It's because it's ornamental, the quota's a bit different.
Its growth rate's just phenomenal. So.
Okay. That's a good thing, because all I hear in the news is the coral reefs are dying, bleaching. So what you see out there, is that a bit of a different world?
Very different.
Are you quite this is your income stream, are you guys reasonably relaxed that the coral's not too bad? And
yeah, we're probably biased, but the coral reefs have never been in better shape as far as we've seen, honestly. Right. In our time doing it, we've seen bleaching and we've seen the recovery from bleaching, which is just, it's far more resilient than anyone gives it credit for.
Yeah, right.
And just to be sure, acro as a species is 19.5 ton total allowable catch.
Okay. Alive or dead, they're regulated, you're logging in everything, and essentially you're maintaining your industry through this, and this is the government's also maintaining that we keep this sustainable. And you'd argue your industry is very sustainable?
Very sustainable.
Yeah, okay. Look, it's pretty fascinating. And if you were to take a step back, your business, you've talked a couple of times that if we had the resources, and you've had the guy who made your compressor who wasn't quite on the money, you've got a couple of boats, you've had to invest in the license and the quota system. It's a fair bit of infrastructure to set up. And is that fair? And how'd you go
Absolutely.
about that?
And the other thing of that too is it could all be worthless at some point. If this industry changed dramatically, it could potentially be bad.
See the reckoning of
the government, absolutely. And also to like everything that all the raceways that we've built. Although that cost us a lot of money to set up, you can't sell that again, can you?
No.
You never make it. You never get your money back out of it.
Yeah.
The coral license, if the government restricts it so that there's no ability to make enough money out of it, the coral license is worthless. We are at the whim of the government, really. But we're hoping that with all the changes and how sustainable it's seen to be, and there'll only give us longer at it.
Yeah, look, I could probably give everyone a little bit of comfort on it. The governments don't just change their mind and kill everyone's industry. There'd be some sort of package offered if they were to do it. But the point is, we are at the beck and call of the government.
Yeah.
Okay. And the infrastructure costs, you guys have got a reasonable sized business now, and you've been doing it for how long?
Going on 6 years.
6 years in your own business? Yeah. And your own business, that is, right?
Yeah.
And Dave, we know you had 4 before that. So the setup costs, give me a feel for the type of investment that you guys have had to do over the years.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard one to answer because it's happened over time. But if you were to do it now, I mean, getting a license would be extremely hard. It's not that.
Buying a license right now, you wouldn't anyway, because who knows what they're worth.
Yeah.
A license at the moment, it's only what someone's think it's worth and is willing to pay. So if there's more changes brought in on the 1st of July, a 4-ton license, in our opinion, well, my opinion, could potentially be worth a lot less because you're going to be able to collect a lot less of the high-end species. So they're going to individually quota the top 7 species, the top earning species in our industry. So we'll be allocated a quota of those.
Well, they're top earners, I assume, because supply and demand. Supply is thin.
Yeah, and beauty.
Endemic to Australia.
Yeah, and the government's probably trying to regulate that a bit or be harder on it to maintain that species. So they might be doing the things in best endeavours, but it's hurting you directly or aiding you.
Which means we'll just have to buy more quota.
Yeah, gotcha.
But at what cost, time will tell.
Okay. So there's a fair bit of setup costs, and I'm going to call those natural barriers of entry. It's pretty hard to just go and start and
get off and go collect coral.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of infrastructure behind you, you've got a lot of regulation, and the time behind the wheel of the boat or whatever you want to say is quite lengthy, yeah?
And we haven't even touched on the export permits that Dave mostly handles.
Yeah, right. And probably I won't jump into that too much, but there are barriers to even getting the animals overseas.
Absolutely, yeah. So there are CITES species. So all corals are CITES regulated, which is the Convention for International Trade of Endangered Species.
Okay.
So that's a whole nother ball game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No consignership for our facility because it all goes on planes. That was a hell of a mission to get as well.
Yeah, okay. Okay. In terms of a business for you guys, we work to live, we don't live to work.
Yeah.
You're spending a lot of time underwater when you're away. Do you find it enjoyable, this job? Would you, if you had your time again, would you not change a thing, or what?
I would have started as early as possible in this industry.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah. That is one thing that one of your questions here, I do definitely change. I would have started as early as possible.
Yeah.
Just straight out of school. If we knew that this was a thing, you would do everything in your power to get into it. Then.
So if you had your time again, you'd be collecting coral?
Absolutely.
In it earlier.
So it sounds like you love it.
Earlier. Oh yeah.
Really?
It's incredible.
That's
We get to
fantastic.
see some amazing places and
Yeah.
dive some remote places. Like it's great.
And it pays the bills as well?
A little bit, yeah. We'd make okay money.
It's all right.
You make okay money?
Yes,
Well, you've got a fair
could
bit of
always be more.
infrastructure set up, right?
Yeah.
You've got a fair investment. And to be fair, when I've looked at your books, you actually have reinvested in your business of your earnings. Quite a lot of money's gone back in.
Yeah.
And that's been belt tightening and the buckling down and doing it. And if you're doing something, you should be able to reap the rewards of your labour. So,
Yeah, well, that was always the plan. Just keep, also trying to set up for the future. So hopefully that's where you guys come in.
okay. Now I'm going to get into the stock standard questions. I'm going to ask you one at a time. And these are more the way we get a bit of a business owner's feedback. What's the best part of owning a business? Not your business. What do you think the best part of owning a business is for you?
I guess it's the flexibility. Like you can do what you want or what's recommended to you with the money. Like you can reinvest. You can. I don't know.
So the flexibility of business ownership brings you is what?
Making big decisions for your future, basically. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to stick with you on this one. You've told me the best. What's the worst?
The responsibility, that's one, yeah. There's a lot riding on you, especially if you've got employees and we've both got families. Like there's a lot riding on it.
Okay. And Brendon, what's the best thing you find about owning your own business?
Well, yeah, much the same. It's good being your own boss, obviously. And seeing what we've created. That's good to see that you're not just going to work for someone and going and hating it and, making them money. We're making ourselves money. Like Dave said, we're reinvesting within our business and growing it. And we're starting to sit back now and go, that's pretty cool. We've got this, we've got that. We can do this, we can do that.
It's going to sound like a strange question. If your business was an animal, what animal would it be and why?
Without thinking too much, it's got to be a sea creature of some sort. We spend a lot of time underwater, in the water, around the water. If we're on land, our hands are wet being in the water.
An
Octopus, I'd say, yeah.
An octopus?
Yeah.
And why do you pick an octopus?
8 arms.
It's busy.
Got to have a touch on everything. Yeah.
It's a busy animal.
Very busy animal.
Yeah, fair enough. And how many hearts does an octopus have? Something ridiculous?
Yeah, it's got a few.
4 hearts or something, isn't it?
Yeah, you got to have heaps of heart. That's for sure.
And you've got to love the water.
Absolutely.
I mean, there must be days where you go, oh my God, have I really got to spend 5 hours underwater? I'm a bit cold. I've really had it.
None of that. Oh, that's okay. But the days that are hard is when you've got a raging headache, because it's probably got to be one of the worst jobs to have a headache with.
That's probably got to the night before, is it?
No, not necessarily.
Sometimes.
But yeah, no, it's a terrible job with a headache.
Okay.
The rest of it you can overcome, usually.
Okay, so Brendon, we asked Dave, he's given us an octopus. What's your favourite? What was the animal that your business...
I have to agree with him, because you got to have the tentacle everywhere with all of what's going on behind the scenes, the regulations we've got to follow, customers on the other side of the world that aren't paying us. You've got to be everywhere.
Being an accountant and working with a lot of businesses, I call it the art of wearing many hats. And I think every small business owner gets used to wearing many hats. You guys are exporting, you're packaging, you're collecting, you're marketing your business. There's so many things that are always going on. It's a very apt description, the octopus, I think. Now, in particularly your business, what do you think the best part of that is for you? Brendon?
I like the lifestyle of it. Even though the diving side of it is incredibly hard, that's still probably the most enjoyable part, apart from when you get the payment from the last shipment. But yeah, we are lucky enough to be doing something that we both love, the water. So going away diving, like I said, albeit they're massive trips and have near-death experiences far too many times. Yeah.
These near-death experiences, you've brushed them over. You told me that it was a little fish, and you told me that you ran out of air and you just came up in an orderly fashion. It doesn't sound it was quite that relaxed. Dave, I've asked Brendon the best part. What do you think of the worst part of your business?
Can we say employees?
Yeah, that's exactly where my mind went.
Other people.
We've had some bad employees. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's fair. Employees won't like to hear that.
I think they might have to remain anonymous, so to speak. Okay, if you're giving advice to your younger self and you're on your journey, and I know you've already mentioned we would have got into this earlier, what would be the best piece of advice of your younger self, whether it was 20 straight out of school and setting this business up, or at 28, whatever year or age you were? What could you tell yourself and do better?
We work pretty hard.
The other thing, to get into it earlier, I'd learn more. I'd be a learner, we're still learning every day with coral.
Yes.
And I don't think anyone really understands it properly, the way that it grows and exactly what it needs, but I would have got into that a lot earlier.
Okay, so studying the coral itself.
Yep.
Okay, and that would have given you a lot more now.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I've got a couple of others up my sleeve. Brendon, an aha moment from your business journey, as in, wow.
It was probably the first shipment. We'd gone through all this setup and all this fiberglassing, really. Fiberglassing is not a fun job. It's set up, put everything on the line, mum and dad in. Then we sent the first shipment without payment because the company, they don't pay up front.
Your new kids on the block as well.
Yeah,
they're not going to give you money.
And I can't remember what the first shipment was. It was substantial to us anyway.
$9,000.
Yeah. US, yeah.
US.
So $9,000 US is your first shipment.
Yeah.
Give me a feel, because I don't know much about this space. Give me a feel for what sort of volume or weight or some sort of measure about what 9 gram means in live coral.
I think from memory about 15 boxes.
Yeah.
15 boxes, that's quite a lot.
20 kilo boxes.
Yeah, with an average, but that's a lot of water weight and stuff, with an average of about 12 pieces per box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not
Not many
Not
pieces.
huge. There's some of these corals a lot of people would be surprised. They're incredibly valuable. They are. We've got some pieces of coral that we have sold for astronomical prices.
Okay.
But yeah, that would have been the biggest. We were sent it gone well, and then probably when payment coming well, we've done it.
Well done.
That's
Pat yourself on the back moment type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. What's the worst thing that's happened along the way that we can teach or learn off?
It's not over yet, but trusting people to pay. That's the worst part of it, isn't it? If everybody paid up to date a week after the shipment had landed and all that sort of stuff, that everything would be far more comfortable for us. Whether or not that's
Okay, so cash flow at times is a bit challenging.
Yeah, it can be, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Being that we're at the whim of when they decide they want to pay.
I assume as you become more and more mature in your business and people know you more, actually you can start to change the rules a little bit on that.
Yeah, and it's it's such a fickle thing. If they aren't paying, there's obviously something going on. But then if you don't keep shipping to them, because a lot of these people we worked with for several years, then how are they going to make any more money to continue to pay?
Yeah, right.
So it is difficult. It's catch-22. Send them some more, you might lose more.
Yeah, gotcha.
Send them nothing, you might lose everything.
Gotcha. Yeah, fair cool. And I'm going to ask you this one. If you're the Prime Minister for a day, if you're the Prime Minister, what would you do or change?
I would be in trouble for a start. I don't know. I would probably be biased and have a deep dive into the fishing industry, and I'd change a fair few things there regarding catch limits, maybe, because what we see, researchers don't really get to see. They can't get to the places we get to, and we get to see things that we're told there's hardly any of these left. We go to places where it's just everywhere. Like, it's just, yeah, there's so much of it. And it's, like, I understand the side of it that they're coming from because they can't see it. Like, you know, how do they get to these amazing places that are remote and dirty water and heaps of current and all the above? So, yeah, it is a hard one, but that's probably what I'd change.
Oh, very good. Well, gentlemen, it's been a really interesting discussion. And look, I found it fascinating in terms of what you get up to and your business in itself. And for anyone out there, Dave and Brendon, it's East Coast Marine Collections, and they collect ornamental coral and live coral, and it sounds like great species of live fish for export. So
we trade under Barrier Reef corals.
Yep.
Barrier Reef corals.
All socials is Barrier Reef Corals.
And if anyone wanted to look you up, how do we find you?
Yep, Facebook, Instagram.
Barrier Reef corals, you'll be able to see. Is it Facebook and Instagram? But
Yep.
If you were wanting to buy some corals that we collect, Australian Coral Sales, they will sell you.
Yeah, great. Gentlemen, I really appreciate your time and your candidness. I'm still trying to work out how big a bull shark is at that length and size. It was a tiger, actually.
We'll take you for a trip.
No, I don't fancy visioning myself in a mouth, but the old tigers, I understand, are pretty good, unless they think you're a turtle, but the old bullies, they're a bit indiscriminate, right?
Bull sharks and hammerheads are the worst.
Yeah. Hammerheads?
Yeah.
Yeah, hammerheads.
Yeah, they get
Wow.
toughy.
They get toey.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Because bull sharks will eat bits of you too, won't they? They'll just
yeah.
pick bits off. Great white will give you a nip and spit you out, but you're dead.
Yeah.
But a bully will come back and take your other arm. And
Let's not find out.
well, thank you. Really appreciate your time, and then I look forward to the next time we can catch up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, Gibbs.
Thank you for listening to NavTalk. If you'd like to catch up on other episodes from this series or previous, head to our NavWealth website. Until next time.